What have I done? I've ruined it. I don't know if I can salvage this. Hi everyone, today I'm going to be customising my Swatchdex Studio. Now this is a product from Sarah Renee Clark. It is something that you swatch all of your pens, pencils, paints, markers, any kind of media that you use in your colouring and art projects. You can go over to my main channel, Colour with Claire, where I have done a comprehensive review of the Swatchdex Studio. I open up the decks and show you and use my pencils on them and show you how you can use them. This particular video on Craft with Claire is just about customising the box. So I'll leave the link in the description if you want to go ahead and look at the review, see what it's all about. But for today, we are going to customise the box. Now, it is a gorgeous box. It's so well made. It's sturdy. It is strong. It's got some of these sort of UV printed lines. You can see when I shine them in the light. And it's beautiful. And it doesn't really need customising, but I just wanted to do it because I thought it'd be a really fun project. So I've already started to customise this and it went really, really wrong. So this is how it turned out. I spent so much time taping up the edges of these triangles and painting them and then doing really, really tiny detail paintwork on the edges to make sure they were within the UV lines. And I was thinking of doing something where we had triangles of blocks of colour and then some triangles were monochrome patterns. But because I never prepare things and I never have patience to actually put the time in and do that preparation, all of the bits of marker that I used have started to come off and it looks horrific. The acrylic paint that I use is absolutely fine, so I will continue to use that. But to be honest, even if these were all correct and it didn't smudge everywhere, I don't think I like the colour idea. It's basically because that's how I coloured my first deck. So if I just pull this out and show you, this is the pattern that I decided to colour. So it usually looks like that. And I coloured this kind of pattern on it with blocks of colour and then some different line work in some of the triangles. So I was trying to sort of emulate that. And looking at it now, it does not look good at all. So I thought, how else can I do this? And straight away, as you know, I'm a big horror fan. I thought, why don't I completely horrify it and, you know, turn it into something really creepy looking? Because that kind of goes with my aesthetic. So that's what we're going to do today. I don't really know yet what I'm going to do, but I know that I'm going to prepare the canvas this time properly. Even though I've already, you know, used different mediums on it, I'm going to put some gesso on the top and hopefully that will create a nice surface for me to paint onto, you know, use pens and things that aren't going to just slide off the top because it is a really sort of shiny material. So first hurdle, the gesso has dried up. I think I'm going to have to Google, can you reactivate dried up gesso? Okay, so this says that I can use water or glycerin, which I don't have, so I'll just have to use water. Mix it slowly and allow the gesso to rehydrate and soften. Right, so here comes the water. Let's move this out the way so I don't completely ruin it before I've even begun. I've got some water ready in my little saw mug for painting with, so I'm just going to try and tip some of that in. Oh, probably make a massive mess. Now I need something to stir it with. Let's use the end of a paintbrush. Oh, you know, it's not that bad. It's actually quite pliable, and I'm just hoping that we can get this to work. I've done my best to mix it and it's still really clumpy and horrible. I obviously do have some liquid in there, which I'm assuming is the water that I poured in, but I'm just wondering if there'll be enough gesso within that water to work as a wash and, you know, dry and still create a somewhat gesso surface for us. I don't know. It's all an experiment. So I'm just going to grab a big brush and let's try and see if we can get anything out of this. So hopefully this is not mostly water and no gesso. I'm hoping there is going to be a bit of the ground medium in there, just to create literally a little rough surface so that we can add bits on top. It seems to be resisting. I can see a lot of little resistance, you know, where it starts to split on the actual white of the box itself. But if this doesn't work, it's okay, because the acrylic paint that I used to paint all of the little triangles has stuck quite nicely. It's just the paint pens that don't seem to have, you know, stayed where they're meant to be when they're dry. So I'm thinking, even if this doesn't do much, painting it with the acrylic paint is still going to work. So I've given it a good coating, but it definitely has, you know, resisted in places. All I can do is give it another coat once it's dry and hope that this has some gesso in it. Right, so because obviously I'm never prepared and, you know, everything always goes wrong, I don't have any black acrylic, and that is what I wanted to do, is completely base this in black. I do have plenty of other acrylic though, so we're going to create some black acrylic. So I've got my little Caran d'Ache, what do you call these things? Brain fog. Paint palette thing, paint mixer plate palette thing. This one has a rough side, so it's good for, you know, crayons. If you've got some water-based crayons, putting it on there and it'll catch that pigment so that you can mix them. This one is completely shiny. Yes, it is a bit of a mess because I use it a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some ultramarine blue acrylic and some burnt sienna, and we will see if we can create a lovely rich black. It's always better to create a black from other colours rather than just use a black out of the tube. It's a lot more rich, deep, dynamic. It's got some very slight hints of different tones in there, and it's just a lot better than a flat black. Okay, so here we go. These are the Arteza acrylics. I've got ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. Now I'm going to need quite a bit, I think, for the top of this, so I'm going to use quite a lot of paint. I'm going to need more than that, I know I am, because it doesn't really go that far. And then I'm going to do around about the same amount of burnt sienna. I'm going to get my little palette, I feel like Bob Ross, and start to mix them in, and we should end up with a really nice black. Okay, so we're definitely getting there, but I'm just going to add a little touch of phthalo green just to take the warmth out of this black a little bit. So I'm going to use the same brush that I used for the gesso. I've cleaned and dried it, don't worry. I'm going to grab some of that paint. Let's see what happens. So acrylic paint is great because it covers pretty much everything. So you can see just on that first coat there, I've covered up all the red and all of the other black lines that I did underneath. Acrylic paint is, I think it's some kind of plastic polymer, so it dries like a plastic. And what I noticed when I was pulling the washi tape off the sides of my triangles was that it was bringing some of the paint up in one whole strip. It was like a piece of very thin plastic. So I'm hoping that the somewhat gesso mixture that we've put on the bottom will stop that from happening, because this should be able to cling a lot better. It's created a bit of a key. You know how you would sand something that's shiny to create that bit of a key? That's basically what gesso does. So it shouldn't come off in a big strip. You see how you need more paint than you think you're going to need? You can water acrylic down, but I never do. And I think I'm going to do another coat as well, because you never put as much paint on the second coat. You'll notice if you're doing your fence outside, you know, it takes ages to get all the nooks and crannies on your first coat, and then the second coat is so much quicker because you can just whap it on. So that's what I'm doing. So that is pretty much done. You may still see, you know, some of the marks underneath, like I can see the edge of the acrylic triangle that I've already painted, but I'm not bothered about that. It's covered it. I'm going to be doing a design on it, so I really don't care. So that's the first coat. I'm going to give it a dry, and I'm going to do it quickly with my little heat gun because I don't want the paint on the palette to dry. while I'm doing it. Can you tell I'm new to crafting? Okay, so while this is still slightly wet, I want to add a little bit of grey in the centre to make it look like we've got a vignette of black around the edge, but it's more, you know, light in the middle. I'm not making things easy for myself, am I? So I'm just going to add a bit of grey to the palette. I'm going to mix it in with some of the black that we've made. Again, this is all trial and error experiments. And I'm just going to paint it on. Like I said, the bottom is not quite dry. So I'm hoping I can lay some of this on, and with a more or less dry brushing technique in a moment, I'll be able to blend it. Just so we've got that little bit of a glow effect in the centre, I guess. That's what I'm looking for. Don't know if I'm doing it the right way, but we'll find out. So I don't know how much of this you can see, because I know I've got a big light above me and there's a lot of glare, but it's not great, but that's the kind of effect that I wanted, just something that was a little bit lighter in the middle. So I'm going to now wash my brush before the acrylic paint dries on it. It's really important. Like I said, acrylic paint is some kind of plastic and it will ruin your brush if you don't wash it immediately. Same with the palette. Okay, so it's dry now, and I've just propped it up a little bit so that you can see it out of the glare. It's quite nice. I quite like how it's turned out. It looks a little bit foggy, a bit misty, a bit, you know, creepy, which is what we're after. I've also done the back, the sides, and on the drawers, I've also done the edges, the front, and the sides. So I'm hoping that when I slide this in and out, it's not going to flake any of the paint off, but I am planning on using a matte acrylic varnish, a couple of coats on this, which will hopefully harden it up and keep it nice and strong. So I love the look of this. I love the sort of mystical, you know, foggy look, but I feel like I want a tinge of red in there as well. This could be the point where it all goes wrong, but I want to try some of this Lefranc Bourgeois flash paint. It's an emulsion paint and it kind of looks like an acrylic, or at least a gouache. It's quite goopy, but I'm thinking if I water this down really a lot, great technical term there, really a lot, it might just do as a very subtle red wash over the scene. I'm going to try it because, I mean, I might as well, aren't I? So let me just move all this out of the way. Now I'm going to try, I've got a little cup of water. I'm going to try and add some of this red paint to it. And I'm just hoping we'll be able to get a bit of a wash out of it that's not too pigmented, but just gives it that slight hint of colour. I guess I could use a watercolour paint, couldn't I? Rather than just mixing paint with water. I don't know. This might be not enough paint, too much water situation going on, so I'll just add a little bit more. Now I could do with a bit of paper, couldn't I, to just check sort of how thick it is, how pigmented opaque it is. This might not work, you know, the same as it's going to work on the box, but it's something like that that I'm after, you know, just a very slight tinge. So that may work. And there's only one way to find out, and it's to do it. So let's bring this back. It's quite scary because I am quite happy with how it's turned out, but not sure if that looks like anything at all so far. Let's just try and get a bit more pigment on there. I hope this just inspires people to customise the packaging that you get for things. You know, just give it a go and have a bit of fun with it. I'm not a painter whatsoever, and I'm not completely, you know, au fait with the medium at all. So this is just me having a go as a complete amateur. So I'm hoping that will inspire some of you to have a go if you've never done it before. Right, I think that might be where I want it to be. I'm hoping that is showing up for you. let's put that to one side. I'm going to give it a quick blast with the air gun, and then we're going to get to actually designing it, which is the part that I'm excited and nervous about at the same time. It's dry now, so I'm going to start doing the design. I want to do like a haunted house and like a big spindly tree with no leaves on it and a moon. That's what I feel comfortable with as a non-artist, non-drawer, non-whatever. So I'm going to do it first with some graphite. So I've got a pencil here and I'm going to try and map out exactly where I want my tree to be. I've also got the glare kicking back, so I'm going to just hold it up a little bit. Hopefully you can still see it, but I can also see what I'm doing. So I'm going to have a tree down here and I want it to be fairly big and imposing. So I'm just going to draw a bit of a trunk and hope that I can actually see this when I come to paint it. Right, where did I put that line? I can just about see it. Maybe I just need to do it a little bit more. That's a bit thicker so I can see it better. And I'll do that this side as well. So this is just going to be a crunky old tree. The new word for you there, crunky. I'm actually pressing into the paint now, which is not great, but I'm hoping the paint that I cover this with will cover it up a bit. Let's see, I could do with another branch about here. Oh, see, I'm bringing the paint off. But remember, the gesso was really old and didn't cover very well, so... Oh man, I really don't want that to happen. I'm going to have to be light-handed, but not too light-handed that I can't see where I'm drawing, which is difficult. So I've got a bit of a branch there. Let's come back on this one. Oh man. I'm wondering if I'd be best just to freehand paint this, you know, because the pencil is just taking all of the paint off the top. Let me grab the paint. So I'm going to go back in with the emulsion because I've got no black acrylic. And I'm not watering it down this time, so we will see how it turns out. Let me grab a smaller brush. Let's go for this number 4. It's a square tip one. I'm just going to dunk it straight in the paint and then try and create this tree. It's quite good that I've got shaky hands because that helps create the gnarled look of the branches. And because we created the black of the background with a few different colours, and it gives that rich black feel rather than flat black, this flat black should stick out quite well. I'm going to do a couple of coats, I think. But I just want to get the framework in for now. So I've got to make sure that I'm tapering these branches off, otherwise they're going to look too thick. And I want them to be like different thicknesses, so they look slightly more realistic. Okay, now that I've sort of painted in the main block of the tree, I'm going to be using some black Poscas in different line widths to try and refine some of the branches a little bit. I don't really like how thick I've done some of them, but I don't know as if I can change that now. You can always add on, but it's difficult to take away. So I'm going to grab this sort of like mid one. What's this one? PC3M. And I know that I need to cover up these bits. So I'm just going to do some more little bits of branches and hope that it works out. I could mess around adding branches to this all day long, but I think I'm going to have to leave it there for now. So I've refined some of the, you know, the very tips of the branches, and I think it looks a lot better. I'm still not really happy with this big thick bit, but hey ho. Now I want to try and do the moon. So for that, I'm going to try and cut a piece of sponge in a round shape and then dip it into some white and grey paint, and hopefully we can get some kind of moon looking object down onto the board. So this is the largest sponge that I have, and unfortunately it's not quite around the size that I wanted, which is the inside of this sellotape. So I'm going to attempt to just do the inner part and then freehand the top and the bottom. Like I said before, I'm sure there's other ways I could be doing this, and you're all shouting at me through the screen, but this is just all I can think to do right now. And I do tend to look for complicated answers before I see the very simple basic ones, and hope that I can cut straight. Oh man. I'm sure there are like loads of artist sponges that you can buy in different shapes. So it's quite difficult to cut for a sponge. Ouch, pinch my finger. So I mean, that's like a round-ish sponge on the edges anyway, on the sides, but a bit crap on the top and the bottom. So I'm just, like I said, gonna have to freehand that. I've got this idea of using a sponge in my mind and it's not gonna go away. So I mean, I could paint a circle. I want to try this. And can you see the circles getting smaller and smaller? Because I keep shaving too much off. Right, no more. I can always add bits of paint to it if I need to. So I've got my palette back nice and clean. Let's pop you up there for a sec. So I'm going to need some white. And again, I've run out of white acrylic, so I'm going to be using the emulsion, which will hopefully work okay. And I think I've got some grey acrylic left. So I guess all I have to do is just paint a bit of this on here. Oh, there's some red in there, that's not helpful. And then a bit of grey here and there. Should I have painted straight onto the sponge? I don't know, maybe. A bit of grey here and there. Just sort of bits. I don't know if I can... I don't know. Will it work? We'll wait and see. I'm going to drop the sponge onto there, try and soak up some paint. I don't know. I don't even know if there's any paint soaked up on this. It is a washing up sponge. And then let's have it around about here. Please work. Please do something. That's not too bad. That had more paint on it than I thought. It didn't look as if it did, but that's not bad at all. I can work with that. So let me grab that. Let me grab the paint. And again, the little brush. I could do with a rounded brush, couldn't I, for the moon? Let's pick this one, which is a number 4 rounded. And I'm going to attempt to try and freehand in some of this moon. It probably will end up just being painted, but at least it's given me a bit of an outline to start with. Now the thing about the moon is that it's round, Claire, so we need to keep this round. Got to keep reminding myself. See, now it's getting bigger and bigger. Before, when I was cutting the sponge, it was getting smaller and smaller. Now it's getting bigger and bigger. Okay. Because I don't want it to look, you know, perfect. I just want it to look a bit creepy. And I suppose there was no point me putting those greys on there at all because they're all going to get painted over anyway. But I guess I can just add them back in when I want. And, you know, I'm gonna stick by this story. It's a project. It's not meant to be perfect or printed looking. It's meant to look as if it's been hand painted. So there are going to be, you know, little flaws, big flaws. here and there. Yeah, it's not very round, is it? But hey ho, I might end up doing a little bit of a glow around it with some soft pastels anyway, so that will take the edge off of it. Right, that's the main body of the moon then. Now I want to sort of add in, I wonder if I take off little bits with a sponge, would that sort of work? This is the crappiest bit of sponge ever. Right, let me try this. I sort of take off bits here and there to make it look a bit darker. Get all those little craters in. Because the thing I can't do, as with the branches, is to make naturally growing things look organic. They always end up looking too linear or too, you know, messed around with. I think sponge can help with that, because you can't really get much precision with a sponge. It's going to be all over the place and organic, and there's nothing you can do about that, so it's quite good. I think this is turning out okay. Just keep sponging up little bits. Make some of the bits larger than others. I'm not looking at a reference of the moon for this, by the way, as you probably already can tell. I'm just doing something that looks a bit moon-like. A little bit of red in the moon could mean that it's some sort of blood moon. You know, we can always make mistakes work somehow. We'll just give it a story, and we'll just pretend that that was meant to look like that. Do you know what? I'm actually thinking that looks pretty good. What do you guys think? You can't tell me, you're not here. But I hope that you like it. I'm pretty proud of that. Let's just do a few more near the edges. Hey, I wonder if we could use this little bit that we've brought off on the sponge as our shadow, or our little bit of glow around the moon, rather. Yeah, it's a little bit dotty, isn't it? Trying to use the flat of the sponge rather than a pointy bit. I can always come back in, like I said, with some soft pastels anyway, and make that glow a bit better. But I quite like that, you know. I could sit here tapping at it all day, and I just want to make it quite variant, you know, is that a word? So that some of the spots are bigger, some are smaller, some are darker, some are lighter, and just see how that works. Just use my fingernail here and there. Quite pleased with that, guys. I hope that you like it too. Right, let me put this paint away before I spill it. Now let's get on to the haunted house. I will come back to the moon and finish that off in a bit. Let's get back to the haunted house. I'm going to prop you up again. So I want something that's going to be like, just like a silhouette of the house. So I might need to look at some reference pictures. Let me just type. So this is good. This is the kind of thing that I'm after. A silhouette of a haunted house, but then with some kind of glowing windows. So I'm going to need my Posca pens back, because I think I want to freehand this. I mean, I don't want to, but I've got no other choice really. Right, so I'm just going to have a look at my reference as I'm doing this. So I'm going to start with, I was going to start with the top tower, but I'm thinking this tree is like going to be the hugest tree in the world, because it's growing up past the moon and the house has only really got this sort of space. So this tree it's not going to be in proportion whatsoever. But you know what, it's spooky, scary, things are meant to be not as they seem. So again, that's my story. Let's do a big one down here. Let's do a turret. Let's put the turret into the moon a little bit, maybe. I know it's not straight, don't worry. And then let's make that one a little bit thicker actually. This should be kind of more towards the end, shouldn't it? Because it's like a tall one and I haven't got much room. So let's do a little line across here. And maybe we'll have a turret that ends here. And just shape that one out. It's kind of leaning to one side, this. But again, it's a haunted house. It leans, it does what it wants, it's alive. So let's do, what should we do? I don't want to make it exactly like the reference, you know what I mean? Let's do a little bit of a jaunty angle and then another tower that has a bit more of a sloped roof on it, something a bit different. I don't know if that looks good or bad. Let's paint it in. Okay, so now I've got this ochre Posca pen and I'm going to try and do some windows with this. So let's give it a go. Let's do a window here. Again, it's not aligned, it's not straight, but I quite like the quirky off-center sort of look anyway. Let's do another one here. Maybe it sort of goes a bit like that. Then let's do a little shaped one there. Just looking at my reference again just to see where they've put them and decide if that's where I want them. I think I definitely need to have one here. May need to do two coats of this. I think I also need my little scratch pad as well, just to keep that ink flowing because the nib is clogging a little bit with the paint. So I'm going to use this more as like a liquid paint than a pen. So thinking about it, the glow wouldn't have edges, would it? That would be the window pane. So let's just get rid of those and try and neaten them up slightly. I think it's looking pretty haunted housey, isn't it? It's looking pretty quirky and cool. Might just want to round this down a little bit more, and I might want to taper this one up a little bit more. It'd be easier if I used a paintbrush, wouldn't it? So if I just pop some of this ochre out, can you even see? Sorry. If I just pop some of this ochre out of the pen, pick it up with a brush, and then we can fill it in a little bit better without muddying the nib. You see, I'm learning as I go along, the same as you guys are watching me. And hopefully I'm making these mistakes so you don't have to. You can pick up bits here and there, you know, and do them better probably than I can. But it'll just give you a few ideas. So this is my white pan pastel. I've got a little tool here that will hopefully help me. A little sponge tool. Just going to put a bit on there, and then I'm going to also scrape a bit off. Do that off camera so it doesn't scrape onto the picture, because these are quite pigmented. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a glow around it, and then we'll come back and, you know, look at it after, see if it needs any more. I don't think those dots that I made with the sponge are helping. See, I have quite a tendency to overdo things, and I overwork it and I go too far, which is probably what I'm doing right now. But I have to get it looking how I want it to look. Sometimes I ruin it in the process. Okay, let me put that away before I do even more damage. Then I'm just gonna quickly go back in, redefine the silhouette of the roof. Try try and blow bits of pastel off. Oh dear. Okay. So that's pretty much the design that I wanted. Maybe a couple of bats would help. Let's get some bats. Maybe we could have a bat here just in front of the moon. So again, freehand, not great. Just gonna hope, hope and pray that I can do a bat shape. I mean, they've got a little head, haven't they, with the two little ears. Something like that. It's always harder to like mirror the shape as well on the other side. So it's probably going to be totally misshapen. This is quite a large bat, isn't it? But again, proportion, not my thing. And we're just going to blame it on the fact that this is a very strange scene. Let's see, let me get my big thick one and fill that in. It could be a bat, couldn't it? It could be, it might be like the ugly duckling. You know, it didn't quite match the other bats, but I think the problem is that I'm making them too long instead of wide. So this, I mean, this one, it looks like one of those flying, what are those flying like little squirrel things? It looks kind of like that. You know, maybe I can touch it up a little bit. Here I go again, messing around. Just put a tiny bit of white paint on there. Hey, we could add some more white into the moon, you know, just to give it extra pop. So I thought I'd just do a little bit of a creepy figure standing in the top window. I decided to add this little top window because I thought it looked like there was too much black going on. I wanted to break it up a little bit. I did think about doing some sort of like railings across, you know how they have leaded windows. I thought about doing that, but then I don't know, it might just make it look a bit too much, if you know what I mean. I want it to be quite basic. I think probably what I could do, just to break up some of these yellow windows a little bit, is just to do just like a cross on some of them. So I don't know whether all of them would have a cross. I don't know. I want to break them up a bit, but I don't want to go mad adding detail. I think it'd just be too much. So I'm going to try doing a cross. How wobbly is that? But the best thing about using acrylic paint is that you can just go over. So if I'm not happy with these, I can just go over it with that yellow again. Probably take a couple of coats, but it would cover. But like I said, this is meant to be, you know, a handmade, hand-drawn sort of thing going on. So I'm not too fussed about it being perfect. So I think I'm done with the haunted house. Maybe I'll change my mind. I thought about doing a little bit of sort of detailing on the top here. Maybe something like a little, do with a bigger pen for that because it's making little marks. I could do something like a little circle on top and then some little detailing like this. Just again to make it look a bit more decorative, I suppose. So seeing as I've done it on there, I might as well do it on here as well. Just a little circle and like a little moustache coming off of the circle. They're not perfect. I've also put a couple of little chimneys on as well. I want to write the word Swatchdex on here. But again, I'm sort of in two minds. I want to, but I also want to leave it just as an art piece. It's difficult, isn't it? What I'll do before I make my mind up is I'll do a little bit of mist, because I think we are just missing a little bit of something. But even before I do that, I'm going to once again change my mind and put maybe a few little headstones around, so it's kind of like a graveyard as well. So if I just do some really, really simple headstones. We do a cross one as well. Make it a little bit thicker. Again, I'm not doing them straight. I'm kind of doing this on purpose, even though I've got really shaky hands. I am doing this on purpose. You know, what would also be really creepy would be like a noose hanging from the tree, but is that too much? Is that too morbid? That's probably a bit morbid, isn't it? I could do it like a creepy swing, couldn't I? Let's add another little headstone down here. I think that'll do. Let's do a little creepy swing then, and then I will get on to doing the mist. We'll get there. We get there. I have so many ideas just popping around my head. But this is just a perfect branch to have a swing, isn't it? I just wonder if I should attempt to do this a little bit more straight. I'm just trying not to hit the wet gravestone that I've just done. A bit straighter. There we go. I was scared it was going to smudge. So we'll do a little swing. And I mean, this is a high swing. It's as tall as this roof. So can you imagine trying to climb up? Maybe there will be some kind of ladder here. I know I'm thinking too much into this. I know I am. It's all in the details, isn't it? A little swing. Let's pretend it's got some wood grain on it. Should there be something wrapping around this swing, like should make it look a bit creepier, like a vine or something. This nib is so fine that it catches on the marks from the acrylic and it sort of splats everywhere, so I've got to be careful. Probably doesn't look that great, but so I said a little ladder, didn't I? Let's just do a little ladder. We'll have like a broken one halfway through. There's a few more little details. I really cannot see these headstones much at all. I might need to go over them with the black paint, because that seems to be a lot deeper and darker than the black Posca. So I'll just grab a little brush. I'll use the lid of my paint, get a little bit on there. Now this has been sat for about a day, because obviously I'm editing this video, so I'm not painting this all at once. I'm painting the majority of it all at once, but I'm not doing all of it. So this has been this has been sat for a couple of days, and there's already marks. I've tried not to put anything on it, but there's already marks of little scuffs and everything. So I'm so glad I've got the varnish, because oh man, I'm just making this worse, because that's hopefully going to protect it. Just put a bit more black on there just to redefine the shape a little bit, because I messed up. you know, if these aren't that obvious, it's totally fine, because I'm going to put the mist on there. So that would be covering up things as well, just having that bit of mist floating over. You can see this. I always worry that I'm not on camera, because quite often times I'll go off camera without thinking. There's the cross. Again, I'm not doing it perfectly because I want it to look a little bit crooked and wonky and weathered. If you can now hear the noise of a fan behind me, I do have a gigantic sort of industrial sized fan because it is absolutely roasting. Today it's 31 degrees. So I'm not sure what that equates to in American money, but 31 degrees Celsius. And it might not seem that hot to you guys that live in the hot countries or the hot parts of, you know, countries, but for us here in the UK, it is horrible. It's a very, very wet sort of, what's the word? Very moist heat. It's very humid, and we don't have air conditioning as standard. So we all kind of sit in our houses and melt with these crappy little fans, trying to do their best to keep us cool, but they're not very good. Right, I've put those back in. They are kind of fading away a little bit, but I don't mind about that. I'm just looking if there's any more details that I want to touch up with the black, because like I said, there's been bits that have for some reason scuffed, even though I've not really touched the top of the box. I've not put anything on top of it. It just seems to have collected these scuffs. It's probably some kind of ghost, because, you know, scary. Just go over a few of these bits. I know I've got some ochre here, but I don't really want to go over it with the black because this background isn't this black that I'm using. So it'd probably look worse if I went over it. So I'll just fill in that a little bit. Now there's a few little parts where I've coloured with a Posca pen, and that's actually showing up brighter or a slightly different tone of black than the rest of the house. So I just want to go over those little bits. I'm not going to go over the man because that was like precision work, so I don't want to mess that up. I'm just going to go over the bits that I can see have been done with pen and not paint, because it's really obvious. It may not be obvious to you on camera, but it is to me when I look sort of in the light. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what it looks like when I take a photograph of it outside of being under a great big light, so you can see. It would probably look loads better than it looks on the screen right now. Just thinking what else to add, and I'm thinking, what about a little cat sat in this tree? Just a little silhouette of a black cat. If I was more talented, I would probably try and draw the silhouettes of some little trick-or-treaters, you know? Make this look like a Halloweeny, because it does look like more of a Halloween cartoon, quite light sort of illustration rather than something very gothic and creepy. But I don't trust myself to do that. So I'm just touching up these little bits. The thing that I was kind of struggling with this as well was that this piece of art that I've decided to do has absolutely nothing to do with the contents of the box. Even the swatch decks that I've coloured so far, it matches with the pattern that I started with on the top, the triangles and the monochrome patterns. So that would have been good, because that kind of looks a bit artsy-fartsy and swatchy. This has absolutely nothing to do with the swatch decks, unless I decide to repaint all of my 4 swatch decks with a horror theme. And then when I open the box, it will all make sense. So maybe in the future I will do that. Let me know what you think. It's kind of been that long that I've been waffling that most of the paint has dried without the heat gun. So let's get on to doing some mist. So I'm going to need some white. Got my little palette down here. I'm going to need a slightly wider brush. So I'm going to go for this number 10. Do they call this a cat's tongue? Something like that. It's a rounded one. It's kind of ovally. I'm going to get a bit of this paint onto the palette, but I don't want too much because I want the mist to be kind of transparent looking and misty looking. So I do just need some water. Now, I know I've just put black in that water, but we should be okay. It's not too bad. And I want to just really, can you see? I hope you can see. I want to really get this very clear. So I've really wet it down. Just going to do a little bit more water. Is this going to ruin it? I've asked this question to myself so many times during this project. So we've got a bit of mist there. I'm just trying to take the splotchy bits away. But you should notice, hopefully, that when this starts to dry down a little bit, it will become more transparent. It looks really white at the moment. So I'm just praying it's going to be more transparent. Just going to clean my brush off and literally just come in with a clean brush and some water so that there's barely any pigment. And then just swish across. Just take a little bit of the shape out of that mist. This is practically a clean brush, just a little bit of wet pigment in there, but mostly water. And I just want to swish it. I just love experimenting. You know, as much of a perfectionist as I think I am, and I'm very hard on myself, I do love it experimenting and just going with the flow. I just hate the thought of possibly ruining something, you know, because it can happen. So I'm just going to pick up a slight bit more of the pigment and just have some more swishy mist down in the darkest part. Because we do want a little bit of contrast down in that dark part. But we definitely want less shape to the mist that's over the house. I just want to make that look almost transparent, quite ghostly. See the acrylic paint underneath, as I mentioned earlier, it's more of a plastic polymer, I think, and that is not water soluble. So we can go over with water, plenty of it, and it's not going to affect anything underneath. So thinking I just need a few more little more defined swishes in here, just slightly. I kind of don't want to go too far with it, you know, it's so difficult. I just hope that I haven't ruined it, because obviously it has taken a lot of the sort of detailing away. Hopefully it is adding to this spooky. So let me move this out of the way before I get myself covered. I'm going to attempt to freehand a little black cat sat here. It would be nice if it was sat on top, wouldn't it, of the moon? Sat on top of the roof, sort of in the light of the moon. Just wondering if I can turn this into a cat. Trying not to touch the bottom part of my thing with my wrist, my hand, my arm. I don't know what words are today. So I think if this was the cat's body, it would have a smaller head on top. It would have two little pointy ears. And it would definitely have a tail. I think what I'm going to do is use one of those as a tail, one of those little swishers. And then I'm going to grab my white, which I've already got on the palette, so that's handy. Gonna grab my white and just fill that little bit of the moon in where that second swish is, because that would make no sense. A cat with two tails. I mean, it is a very strange and odd illustration, but we're not going for that odd today. Oh man, I've just touched over it. So that's okay though, because once that's dry, I can just do this and cover it up. That's the thing that I love about acrylic, is it's just so forgiving, because you can just go straight back over. And even if there's something that you've done in black, you know, that you think is going to be unsavable, you can save it, because you can put white acrylic over black and it will completely cover it. So there's the little cat. I hope it does actually look like a cat. Oh well. Am I done? I don't know. Am I done? I'm really not into this mist. It seems to have separated slightly, which is creeping me out a little bit. I don't know why it's done that. I just put this damp brush over it. Is that going to help? Maybe not. Maybe I've ruined it. If you are doing this along with me, Godspeed. But if you are, then maybe don't add the mist, or maybe you're a professional mist adder, so you'll do it a lot better than I've done it. So I'm still thinking, because I don't quite like the mist, I'm now thinking of how I can cover it up. Should I write Swatchdex on there in some creepy writing, just to cover a little bit of this area? I'll tell you what I will do before I decide. I'll give this creepy person in the window two red eyes. One went a bit wonky. Well, Swatchdex. I'll need quite a thick pen for that. So let me just grab a red. It's a red Posca. I don't know what kind of writing I'm going to do. Swatchdex. I know how to spell it, but I just want to write it down so I can see which one, which letter is, you know, the middle letter. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm so sorry. Right, let's put this in. So Swatchdex. So C is the middle letter. So if I start with C in the centre, I'm not going to leave the writing like this. I will thicken it up and make it look more creepy, but this is just... This is just an outline. Swatched. Okay. Oh, that's gone a bit big now. I can't fit it on. Not to worry. Not to worry. Because what did I say earlier? It can always be covered. Cover that up. Just grab a little bit of white that I had on my palette, and then I can go over it and make it look a bit more misty again. It doesn't matter too much because it is going to be covered by writing. So W, I'll make you a little bit skinny. And then I'll do an S that wraps around this gravestone. Okay, so let's make this a little bit thicker. I want it to kind of look scratchy, you know, as if someone's just scratched the words. So I've managed to get the name on there, but it still fits in with the theme that we're going for, the kind of creepy theme. I like it. It's covered up a lot of the mist, so we're not focused on that mist as much, but it's just there as a background element. The last thing I'm going to do before I varnish it is to get my little thin black and just touch up this eye, because it's going to really annoy me if I don't. That's it. They're a bit more circular now. Going to give it one more little blast with the dryer and then we'll get straight to varnishing. Okay, so we're at the final hurdle now. I've got the box ready to go. This is the gloss varnish that I'm using. Sorry, not gloss, matte varnish. I'm hoping that, because there's a few different glossy elements on this, this will dull them down into one flat sort of finish, rather than you've got the glossy shiny bit of the acrylic base and then you've got the matte of the black paint. That makes sense. So I've never used this before. Let's see if it tells us any specific instructions. Apply 2 to 3 thin coats, allowing at least 24 hours between coats. Vigorous overbrushing may give a cloudy finish. Well, don't particularly want that, but it wouldn't be the end of the world because it would kind of fit in. I'm going to need a big brush. So I'm going back in with the one that I originally used, which has a really annoying ferrule. I don't know, how do you say it? This one's better, it sticks. This is a number 2 flat. I think I'm just going to pour it on. Oh, it's sealed. There's me like really squinting and gritting my teeth to put this on because I don't want to ruin it, and then it's sealed. Okay, there we go. Okay, so it is quite liquidy. I can see it in there. So I'm just going to, it said 2 to 3 thin coats. So I don't want to go too much straight away, and we don't want it to be too cloudy. But I'm just hoping that this will act as a protection. I think that's its purpose, really. Just to protect any of the paint from getting scratched off, because it really is very, very easy to scuff. Now, it said overbrushing might cause cloudiness, but I mean, I've got to brush it on, haven't I? I don't want to miss any. I'm not going to put any more varnish on there because I feel like it's got a bit of build up here, which is not good, but fingers crossed it will work out in the end. Have I covered the whole thing? Oh, there's some black smudge there. That's strange. I can touch that up after. Oh no, my little person's smudged as well. I'm going to have to touch that up between coats, aren't I? Or even after, and just hope it doesn't flake off. But it is looking a little bit clumpy. Just drying my brush off. It's looking a little bit clumpy on this tree. I hope that it dries clear. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's correct, if I've done it properly or not. I don't know if I can dry this with my heat thing or whether I should leave it to dry on its own. Well, that's run out anyway. Well, not run out, but you know when a heat gun gets overheated, it won't work for a while. So can't do that. I'm gonna have to leave it to dry on its own. I'm kind of worried about this though, because it really is quite thick and clumpy. But you saw, I didn't put loads on, did I? It just seems to be clinging to certain areas, especially on this tree. Fingers crossed it will dry clear and we'll see how it comes out after. Okay, it's been 10 minutes and I've used my heat gun on it. This is now completely dry and it still looks horrendous. What have I done? I've ruined it. And what did I actually do wrong? Because I didn't put a lot of varnish on there, surely. It was just enough to cover it. And now I've got mist put all over the place and it looks awful. I don't know if I can salvage this. I'm going to have to do some research. Is there anything that can be done? Do I need to repaint the tree? Maybe I can get away with the stuff on this bit because it's a bit more misty. There was me trying to perfect my mist and do it really gently, and now look. What do I do? I'm going to have to do some research. I might even ask you guys. Obviously, by the time you see this video, I'll have already asked and figured it out, hopefully. But I am not pleased at all. I'm going to leave it 24 hours. But it's dry. It's completely dry. What do I do? Hopefully the next time I'm back on camera, I will have a solution. Okay, it's now been 24 hours and the project still looks horrible. It does actually look worse on camera. It seems to be picking up more definition on the camera than I can see looking at it, which is usually the opposite way, but it still looks horrible. I think what has happened is because there was so much acrylic paint build-up and texture on this part of the tree, the varnish has caught in all those crevices. And because it said on the bottle to not overbrush it to avoid cloudiness, I didn't brush it off enough to get rid of the build-up before I let it dry. So I was trying to do good, but it didn't work out. I've since asked a few of you online if anyone has anything, you know, any tips or tricks that I can do to get rid of this, because it is a non-removable varnish. It says it right there, so I don't think it's something I'm going to be able to fix very easily. I did show my husband and he didn't see the before, so he didn't know what my mist effect looked like. But straight away he was like, it just looks like mist, Claire. It looks really cool and blah, blah, blah. And whereas I am looking at all the horrible clogged up, really cloggy and horrible pieces of it. And maybe my eyes are just going to that because you know, I know to look for it, I guess, but I feel like it's still pretty horrible. So anyway, I've asked a few of you and I've had a couple of suggestions. So the first person said try to sand it a little bit. Now this isn't wood, obviously, it's like a really very high quality sort of cardboard, tightly compressed, you know, it's really sturdy and strong. So it's not wood, so I think if I was going to sand it, I'd have to do it really, really lightly just to get the top sort of few layers off. And then I might need to repaint this bit of the tree. I really can't, I would struggle to do that here because obviously we've got the windows and the words and there's a very small area of black for me to get into and then repaint and then revarnish and hope that it doesn't go cloudy again. It's a lot, but I'm hoping if I can get rid of this bit, it might make it look a bit better because this is the worst kind of affected area. So I've got a couple of emery boards. I've got a normal one that you'd get in a pack of, you know, 20 for £1. And I've got this one. I don't really know anything about grits. This one feels quite fine. It doesn't feel like anything too heavy and really gritted. So I'll give it a go first with the little emery board. Another thing some of you asked to see would work is the pure acetone. So this is something you take your nail varnish off with. And I'm going to be trying that as well. I just want to give this little emery board sand a try. I'm going to be really light on it at first, like I'm barely going to be touching it because I'm so sort of afraid of messing it up even more. So I don't really feel like it's doing a lot, to be honest. Just going to give a little bit more pressure. It's really hard to try this way. I've got a little bit of debris come off that, so it's obviously doing something. I just don't know whether it's doing enough. So in some areas I can see that I'm down past the varnish because the black paint is starting to become more obvious. So what I think I'll do is I'll try the acetone trick, and if that does soften it a bit, that might help me kind of more easily remove it and hopefully get a bit more of an even texture. But I think it's definitely the fact that the texture on the tree was already quite bad, and then I didn't brush it over enough. I didn't remove enough of the varnish because I was being so careful not to overbrush it. So I've got a little cotton bud and I've got my acetone. I'll dip that in. It doesn't really look like there's much going on. Because acetone, it's kind of like, you know, in odourless mineral spirits, they would kind of leave a greasy mark on the page, but not a wet look. That's kind of what this is doing. So I can see a slight shimmer of wetness, but it's not, you know, it's not like I've just poured water on it. It might be difficult to see on camera, but you can see I've definitely got some black on there. Okay, so I'm actually loads happier with that. It seems to have lifted off the main clumpiness, especially from the tree. I'm still going to have the texture of the acrylic paint that I put on there before. There's nothing I can do about that. But the only thing that I want to do now, and it might seem counterintuitive, but I'm just trying to get the balance right, is to just add in a little bit more mist on these areas where I've gone a bit too far with the nail varnish remover, and it's left a kind of patchy, blotchy kind of area where the varnish has come off completely and the paint is now showing underneath, so it's a bit more obvious. So I've watered down some of that white emulsion again, and I'm just gonna go over those bits, but not only those bits, because it's just gonna make them seem, you know, stick out more then. So I'm just gonna make sure I'm covering them, but I'm also adding sort of to the mist as well, so it looks intentional. I don't think this is ever going to look as quote unquote good as it did before I added the varnish, but now I've got to work with what I've got. So I'm just hoping that this will help to cover those areas and even it out a little bit more. I think instead of carrying on working it, because clearly that's been my downfall, is to just leave it. Is to just leave it now and call that project finished. And just hope that you guys like it. And any sort of advice that you've got of how I can sort this out, you know, and make it look any better, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. I really would. I could do with all the advice in the world, because this channel is obviously new. I'm not a painter. I have, you know, dabbled with paints before, but I'm certainly not a master of the medium, and I could just do with a little bit of guidance from some of you if you are. But there we go. I'm going to put the project back together, just give it a quick dry. So I'm bringing back my drawer insert now. I have varnished this, but look, it's already caught on something. I don't know what, because I've tried to be so careful, and there as well. I don't know how long this project is going to last, to be quite honest with you. If I was someone who was very knowledgeable in all this stuff, I would probably have known exactly what primer and base coat and kind of things to do to make this surface, you know, long lasting. So I'm trying to slide it in now, and it is not sliding as easy as it should, which is probably the build-up of the paint. So there's another problem I've encountered. Basically, I think what you should take away from this video is don't customise your stuff. Which is exactly the opposite of what I wanted to do with this video, is to encourage you to customise. But I guess customise your stuff, go ahead, as long as you're better informed than me. So now I'm trying to get this back in very jauntily. Oh, there we go. Maybe it was just the end bit I needed to get in. Let's try and pull it out again. It's hard though, because that's it. It's hard because I can't squeeze the box to open it, but I also can't really open it. Oh my gosh, that creak. maybe I should have left the sides. Maybe I'll get some acetone on there and just remove that from the sides. I don't even know. But anyway, this has been a rather interesting project, to say the least. If you're new to the channel, because it is a brand new channel, I do have Colour with Claire, which is well established. It's 10 years old. This is like my new crafting venture. If you're new to the channel, please stick with me, because I've got lots more projects to come, and I'm really hoping that we'll have some wins as well as the losses. So I hope that you've enjoyed the video. It's probably been illuminating for those of you who've never worked with paints and things before and wanted to find out how not to do it. And it's probably been very infuriating for people who do know how to paint and have watched me struggle through this process. So thank you again for your time. I will now insert a picture on the screen of what this looks like in outdoor light, so not with a massive glaring light sticking down on it. And you can judge on the thumbnail where I've written, have I ruined this? Tell me in the comments, have I ruined it, or is it not as bad as I think? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon on Craft with Claire.